Well, hello, everyone. So glad to be with you again today. I know this is a very, very busy time of year. And so we appreciate you being here with us, giving us some of your time. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic. But before we even name the topic, you know me, I like to know that we're actually live and that we have an audience, that you're here. So if you could just give a shout out. I know I have faithful friends every time who say, hi, I'm here. So if you could do that, that would be really helpful to me so that I can know that we're not talking to each other, but we're talking to you. So let us know, say hi, and that you're here with us. Today we're going to be talking about 3 specific ways that you can shake off a negative feeling if you want to, that you can get rid of a negative feeling if you want to. Sometimes a negative feeling is appropriate. We should feel a negative feeling, and we're not eager to necessarily get rid of it. Hello, Vicki. Thank you so much for letting me know you're here. Hi, Jane. Thank you for letting me know you're here. So today we're talking about these negative emotions. And I think as women, as Christian women, sometimes we feel guilty for having emotions. So if we have anger, then we feel guilty and shame because we have anger. And so let's just take off the guilt trip for right now. And let's just acknowledge that we have some yucky feelings sometimes. Mm-hmm. And what do we do with them? What do we do with them, especially if they're not serving a purpose anymore? So I want to open this conversation. I see some more of you. Hi, Susan and Michelle and Janice and Angel. So glad you're here. And so if you would put it in the chat, what is your number one thing you do when you're feeling something, whether it's kind of blue or whether you're cranky or whether you're angry or whether you're sad or whether you're anxious, whatever that emotion is, guilty, and you don't want to feel it? What do you do? Let's have some collective wisdom here. And I'm going to read off the answers in the chat on what you already do if you have a feeling and you don't want to keep feeling that feeling anymore. You're cranky, you're negative, you're discouraged, you're frustrated, impatient, all the feelings that we all have. So let's just be real here, girls. We all have them. But we want to know, if we don't want to have them anymore, what do we do to get rid of them? What do you do? Cry. Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's a good one. Yeah, cry. Yeah. We just let go of it. Mm-hmm. I'm learning not to ruminate. Okay. So
that's hard.
Yeah.
That's real hard.
Yeah. So Sarah said she drinks wine and overeats. All right.
Yeah.
So I think I really appreciate your honesty, Sarah, because sometimes what we do to get rid of negative feelings isn't as healthy for us long-term. Drink wine, overeat, it certainly works in the moment if that's what you're going to do, but it doesn't really work as a long-term good strategy. Just like, numbing out on other medications or just going numb from watching TV all day or checking out of your emotions might be a way of not feeling them, but it's not a healthy coping strategy long. All right. So Kirsten says she does a thought journal. Find a comedy, Michelle says. Okay. Food, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you do, Janie? What do you do if you don't want to feel something that you're feeling right now? Time out, music, walk, read. Okay. Great suggestions. Mm-hmm. I comfort myself with food. So Julie, I would ask you, is there another way you could comfort yourself? Comforting yourself is a good thing, especially if you're feeling sad or hurt or discouraged over something. There's nothing wrong with comforting yourself. Is there another way that you could comfort yourself that may not cost you the weight gain that food may cost you if you're not wanting, if you're not wanting to gain the weight or you don't need to gain any more weight, then food may not be the best strategy. Sometimes if you can keep that under control, food can be a wonderful thing. That's how our mothers comforted us when we were babies. And it worked then, and it still works now. And it's a huge trigger for many of us to just go get something to eat. And if we can do that in a way that is healthy, that might be a good strategy.
Yeah. Angela says, am I telling myself the truth or am I engaging in catastrophic thinking? Wow. What a great, yeah. Really just to stop and pause and notice, what am I even telling myself about the situation that's, bringing about this emotion, right? Mm-hmm. This thought, feeling, emotion. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah. So you guys are tracking with us because you've been watching these Facebook Lives. And so the thought and the feelings are connecting. So Elise and I were talking about this ahead of time, and you can't even change a negative emotion. You can't even do that if you can't first notice that you're having it. Right.
Right.
So that's the first step. So talk a little bit about that with us, Elise, about noticing.
Yeah. One of the things that I love, I have this little, going to read backwards, I guess, for you guys, but this little pause button. right? And I have a whole bunch of them cut out, and kind of when I'm, talking with coaching, I really kind of want to say, hey, let's create this little pause button. Let's create this moment between the stimulus, like whatever we have seen or noticed, or like something that's caused this negative emotion, right? That we need to create this pause, because otherwise we just will naturally react. And reacting isn't, it can be a good thing. We actually need to react to some things, actually many things. If a car's coming too fast, if our child steps off the corner, the curb, we need to react. If we see, the food's burning, we react. And reacting can be a good thing. But emotionally, reaction can be kind of, it can be harmful. We can say things, do things that's really not our best self to do. And so we have to create this pause between kind of what's happened, the stimulus, and what we've thought about this, what we've thought about it. And by creating that pause, we have a moment to notice, right? To notice what's going on. Actually, what am I telling myself? And so thank you for, who said that, kind of in the feed for us. Exactly. It's like, and that's not easy to do. But
Yeah, and sometimes we're already reacting.
right.
We're already reacting, and I think that's the place to even say, "Oh my gosh, I'm noticing that I'm reacting.
Right.
Four-letter words are pouring out of my mouth, or I'm shaking, or
Right.
I'm ready to choke my kid, or whatever." And so to be able to say, I'm in the moment of reacting, and I'm
Right.
noticing that I'm reacting.
Right.
Right? I'm noticing. Can I press pause and just notice? What am I doing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling?
Right. Kind of, what is my body telling me? Sometimes, we can feel the nervousness inside of our body, right? Or we're already, our body's telling us, and, our thoughts are telling us to respond to that in some way. And so if we actually want to change that negative reaction, we have to get aware and acknowledge that it's even happening to us, right?
Mhm,
We have to
mhm.
create this space, this pause where we actually become aware. And that's really one of your favorite words, that we become aware of what's happening and what's going on for us, right? If
Yeah.
that doesn't happen, we're gonna, our body's just gonna take over. We're gonna keep going what our brain knows, and we're gonna just keep pressing forward, and sure enough, here we're gonna be going, oh, I yelled at my kid again. I don't want to yell at my kid, right? And that's what we're talking about, kind of the things that we want to step away from.
And let's say we yelled at our kid. Okay,
Mhm.
so I want to kind of shift gears a little bit from
Okay.
reacting, because I think we've talked a lot about reacting in
Yeah.
previous Facebook Lives, and our Empowered to Change group will spend a lot of
Right.
time on
Right.
helping you not react,
Right.
noticing your triggers, noticing what you tend to react to, so that
Right.
you can learn to calm yourself down. But I want to talk about more of a feeling. So let's say you reacted,
Okay.
okay, and you don't like the way you reacted, and now you feel guilty.
Right.
All right. And so now you feel guilty, and you feel shame, and you feel bad about yourself as a mom, as a Christian, whatever. And
Right.
so, how do you shake that off? Like, when we have this emotion, either as a stimulus response kind of thing, or as a consequence from a bad decision that we made that we
Mhm.
don't like, or we're in a
Mhm.
situation where we're not happy with ourselves, or we're not happy with the situation, and it's not we're reacting, we're just feeling it. We're in a miserable marriage, and we're miserable all the time.
Right.
Or we're having a string of stressors, and we're just irritable all the time. How do we let that go? This is an important thing that I think we haven't learned as a culture to do, but we haven't learned how to do that in our teaching. As we haven't taught our kids how to do that. We didn't learn. Nobody in my family talked about feelings and what to do with your feelings and how to pay attention to your feelings. I mean, it was just not talked about. We had feelings, and if you were a boy, you could show them. If you were a girl, you couldn't, other than crying.
Right.
So those are the rules in our family. Unless they were good feelings, you could laugh or something like that.
Right.
So I think it's really hard for us to really talk about this emotional stuff, especially because we've been hit with a lot of biblical teaching and good words of wisdom, and some platitudes about, well,
Mhm.
God says to do this, or God says to do that. And
Mhm.
yeah, he does, but how do we do it? So we want to unpack for you a little bit. Let's say, it's not a reaction kind of thing. It's more of a chronic feeling that you have, a chronic feeling of anger, a chronic feeling of depression, a chronic feeling of irritability, a chronic
Mhm.
feeling of guilt, that
Right.
you're always feeling guilty about everything, and
Right.
you don't know how to let go of it.
You're right.
So what would be, obviously we have to notice that we have it. That would be the first
Right.
step.
Right.
I'm living miserable all my life, and I don't want to live this way anymore, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 I mean, I think that you're leading us to this place where we have this sensitivity that we do want to let it go. This isn't the person that we want to be. Right. And so, really kind of talking about how do we then, put boots to the ground, so to speak, really do let it go. But we have to have the desire to want to let it go.
And I
We
think
don't
that's
want to stay in that
crucial.
place any
I
longer.
think that's crucial. And that's what we talked about in our last Facebook Live. Yeah, I think it was I don't even know what day today is. I think we talked about that on Tuesday. We did a Facebook Live and we talked about our big circle, or who is our true self. And so there's this part of us that is inside of us, our emotions.
Right.
And then we have our thoughts, and we did those diagrams. If you haven't watched that Facebook Live, go back. And then we have our feelings and our thoughts, which we've just talked about. But there's this part of us that's saying, I don't want to keep feeling like this anymore. I don't want to feel miserable all the time. I don't want to be depressed all the time. I don't want to be cranky all the time. What's going on with me? I don't want this. I don't need to feel these feelings. Why am I feeling them? And I think this is the important turnaround. Elise is absolutely right. You can't let go of something if you first don't notice you have it. And second, you don't want to. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about what are some of the reasons why we might not want to let go of it. Like, why would you want to hang on to your anger? Why would you want to hang on to your guilt? Why would you want to hang on to your despair, your anxiety, your depression? Give us some reasons why you think it would be helpful for you to hang on to it.
Yeah. Let's put that in the feed. And some of the things that I kind of wrote down, I was thinking about, sometimes, I see in my own self that it gives me energy, right? That if I let go of it, then, then I, kind of power down, and I just let, maybe what needs attention go. Right. But we're paying attention in a negative way, and it's creating negative thoughts for us. Right. And so we want to make that shift. And so sometimes there's this energy around it that keeps us motivated. Right. And we're so afraid if we let it go, that's, well, the energy, it's going to go away. It's going to fade away. Or, the situation will fade away if we get quiet about it. So it keeps this energy, keeps us motivated. Sometimes it actually can keep us focused.
Yeah. So here's a really important point. Write this down. Your emotion serves a purpose.
Right.
It's there for a reason. It serves a purpose. Now, the purpose may be long gone.
Right.
And you're still hanging on to that emotion.
Right.
But it serves a purpose to say, hey, notice me, pay attention. Just like if you had a side sticker, all right, you would notice that pain and pay attention. And you probably say, oh, this isn't an appendicitis. This isn't probably anything serious. I just ran to the mailbox and I have a side sticker, so that you could just rub it and breathe it out and it would be gone. It has a purpose. Hey, you pushed yourself a little too hard in this moment, and you stop and you rub your side sticker and it goes away. So our feelings, whether they be physical pain or emotional pain, serve some purpose. So Elise is saying sometimes that purpose is to wake us up to something that's wrong in our inner life or in our outer life. So we have to pay attention, which is great. So here's where I find a lot of women that we work with in our groups, because we work with women in miserable marriages, in destructive marriages, in abusive marriages, that when they start to wake up to their anger, they're afraid to let it go, because their anger, just like you said, it does energize them and it helps them stay strong in their boundaries. And when they get into letting go of their anger, then they start to feel sorry for their husband, and they start to feel, they miss him, and they feel compassion, and they say, I don't want to feel those feelings, because then he's going to gaslight me and I'm not going to be able to hold my own. And so I have to keep my anger up in order to keep my boundaries down. And that may be true for you right now. And so understand your anger is telling you something's wrong, something needs to change. But to hang on to your anger for years like that is not healthy for you. And so you have to learn other ways to stay strong and have good boundaries. Your anger is telling you you need to do that, and you can't let go of me until you know other ways to do that. But it is important for you to learn new ways to do that, to have tough conversations, to implement tough consequences on people who hurt you or are harming you, or all those kind of things, so that you don't enable that behavior to continue towards you without you having to be all churned up inside with anger all the time.
Right. I mean, then we can feel powerful with it. Right. And so, just as you were saying, Leslie, how can we learn to be powerful in very healthy ways? How can we learn to, with healthy boundaries? And that takes a lot of work to do. Right. And to be able to make that shift. And so our body does feel that sense of power when we, with that energy. sometimes. And sometimes, unfortunately, the feedback has given us, some positive feedback, like people do get scared. People do, do kind of back away, or people do change. Right. And then, so now we're in this negative cycle. And so, in a sense, our negative feelings are working in a positive way, which is not healthy at all. And so it's reinforcing. And so, but I think what you're saying, which is so good, is that we have got to, we've got to recognize that we don't want to be that. We want to really be, in a sense, stable and powerful through healthy behaviors, not through negative behaviors.
Right. I mean, we can feel powerful, just like an abuser feels very powerful in their rage.
Right.
We can use anger to,
right.
and we can do that towards our children. We can do that. We can get a lot of, obedience if we're scaring our kids to death. Right. But
Right.
then later we feel bad. We feel guilty. We feel
Right.
ashamed. We feel, most of us don't like ourselves the way we've handled ourselves that way. So our anger serves a purpose to tell us our kids need discipline, or we
Right.
need to implement some consequences. But when we let our anger control us and we don't know how to handle it or let it go after we're done, or then our guilt go, we just keep in that same reactive cycle. And so the first step is noticing what my feeling is telling me. So if my feeling is telling me something's wrong, I'm guilty. What am I guilty of? Start asking the feeling. All right, what are you trying to tell me, anger? What am I not learning? Your anger is saying, hey, you're being taken advantage of. You need to set better boundaries. I don't know how to set better boundaries unless I'm screaming my head off, right? Well, then that's something that you can learn. You can learn that. And one way you can learn that is we have this Empower to Change group starting in January. It's a 6-month coaching group with 15 people in a group. We have a new group that just opened because most of our groups are full now. So we have a Monday afternoon group that just opened. So if that's something that you've been trying to get a daytime group and none of them have fit your schedule, please check it out, because it is going to be a Monday noon Eastern time group. And we already have, I think, 4 or 5 people in it. So we have about 9 or 10 spots left. So if you're interested in that group for Monday afternoon, or if you're in Conquer and you'd like to be in a Conquer only group, we have a Monday evening group that has a few spots left. But our groups are almost all full. So if you are interested in being a part of this 6-month group coaching process with coaches like Elise and Diana and Leanne and Unia, then please join this group, because this will help you learn not only how to notice your emotions and notice your thoughts. We talked about that thought journal the other day, where you have your thoughts and your feelings and the situation, understanding your thoughts, but also understanding, okay, I have this feeling. I'm constantly moody. I'm angry that my husband won't change. I'm angry that I'm in this miserable marriage. I feel stuck. I don't want to live my life angry just because my husband won't be the husband I want him to be. Right. So what do I need to do to let this go? And so one is to notice what it's telling you. I'm in a miserable marriage. What do I need to do about that? I need to get safe, or I need to have better boundaries, or I need to implement some consequences. Maybe I don't know how to do that. So I need to learn how to do that, because that's part of my maturity process. So what else could they do when they're in this process of learning to let something go? It served its purpose. I don't need to feel guilty anymore. I've repented. I don't need to feel ashamed of myself anymore. I'm fully forgiven in God's sight. I don't need to feel angry anymore, because I know how to be safe and set good boundaries without having to use anger anymore to communicate that, right? What else? How else could they let a negative emotion go? If they were in that place where it serves its purpose, they've figured out what it's saying, what could they do?
Yeah, I think that we can begin to thank it that it was a good messenger. We don't do that often. We don't really let our, kind of tell our emotions, thank you for, notifying me, right? I heard you. I need to do something different here, right? And the emotion has served a purpose. And in essence, it sounds silly, but we don't often thank them, thank it, the messenger that is coming into our body, which is such a gift to us in so many ways. Right.
Yeah. I remember a client of mine, she was into this, like, I have to do more. I have to do more. I have to do more. And so she was saying, hey, if I stay up late after the kids go to bed, I could do more. I could have 2 more hours of getting the wash folded. I could get, the dinner made for tomorrow night, because she worked full time too. And so she was doing more, but she was completely depleted. She was depressed. And I said, your body and your emotions are telling you that doing more is causing more harm than good.
Right.
And she wasn't listening, because she liked doing more. That was a payoff for her, because, her laundry was folded and her dinner was made. And so she wasn't listening to her body's feelings of, I'm tired, I'm depleted, I'm cranky, I'm miserable. Stop doing so much and get to sleep. right? That's what her feelings were telling her, but she was ignoring that. And so she's driving home from work and her body went like this. She's driving on the street and her body went like this. It just fell asleep and she crashed into a parked car and got hurt the car. Thankfully, she didn't crash into a kid on a bicycle, but that woke her up. Like my feelings were trying to inform me and I wasn't paying attention. Thank you, body, for finally waking me up by putting me to sleep. And I was ignoring that. And this is really important that you want to pay attention. But then how do you let that guilt go? Or how do you let that remorse go? Or how do you let those things go? So let's say you've paid attention to your feelings and you don't want to feel anger anymore. What could you do? What are some specific things that we can do?
Are you wanting it in the chat or you want me to say?
I'm asking you, Elise, and then I'll look at it.
Okay. Well, I think, and you may be going down a different path, but I always want to acknowledge, right? What are some different things we can do? It's like we are ready to let it go. And so very much acknowledging what our feelings have told us and taught us, in essence, understanding our limitations, right? That we, and beginning to actually delight and enjoy in the limitations that God has created us in. And that your example was exactly it, that no matter how much she wanted that, that folded laundry and that place of peace, that her body was informing her she can't go any further. So really actually delighting in the fact that our creation is, God is really telling us through our body, I love you, lay down, take care of yourself, and practice good self-care, right? And so, and we opened it up in the feed, like, how are you taking care of yourself when you want to let go, right? And so this is so important. So just kind of acknowledging those feelings, noticing, kind of the information that it's giving us, acknowledging it, and then decide, right? I think we have to get active at this point and really intentional and active. Right?
Yeah. And some people in the feed are saying, sometimes we hang on to it because it's familiar. And this would be two emotions that I have that are very familiar for me that I have to consciously let go of because they don't serve a purpose anymore. So one emotion that I have is anxiety. I am hardwired genetically. My father is 91 years old and he sits and he's reading his Bible and he's rubbing his eyebrows off out of anxiety. I mean, we just have that in our DNA. And so my body feels a lot of anxiety. I have a huge startle reflex, grew up in a lot of fear. So I have a lot of anxiety internally in my body. My heart pounds, my stomach gets nervous. And I especially notice it when I'm traveling. Like if I have to get to the airport, I have a lot of anxiety about getting there on time.
Right.
Now, I don't want to have that anymore. I don't want to have that feeling. I know it. I recognize it. I know what it's from. It's an old familiar feeling. I don't need it. It's not motivating me to go any faster. I'm leaving myself plenty of time to go to the airport, but I'm still feeling that feeling. Here's another feeling that I have a lot: impatience. And I can get irritable, like waiting in a long line or, not getting the computer on the way I want it on. I can find myself getting irritable. And that's part of anxiety as well. It's a form of anxiety of not things happening the way I want. And I don't want to feel that way. So I've learned to not react. So I don't explode over anybody. Probably nobody could tell if I was anxious, if they were looking at me, but I can feel it. Right. So I've learned the maturity of not just being a wreck over it, but I don't even want to feel anymore. So here's some things I do.
Okay.
So when I'm driving to the airport and I say to my body, it's okay. I'm taking care of you. We've got plenty of time to get to the airport. You can calm down. We're not going to be late. And if I miss my airplane, it's not the end. So I have to talk to myself. And it's kind of like I would talk to a little kid who was all nervous. I just have to talk to myself in positive, soothing ways. It's okay. Just breathe, calm down. You're on time. It's all right. God's in control. You don't need to worry about this. So that's one thing I do. I change my thought life. Instead of, oh my gosh, I got to get to the airport, I change that record. All right. I change the channel. When I'm impatient, when I'm noticing, all right, so I'm getting impatient because the clerk is chatting with the other, customer instead of rushing everybody through the line so I can get through my groceries on time. And I'm getting irritated. I don't want to feel that. Nobody could see that on my face. I'm good at not reacting anymore, but I can feel it. I can feel that tension. So what do I want to do? So it's all in my head. All I do in my head is I say, Leslie, it's not all about you. It's not all about you and your time. That's not the most important thing in this world. And just because you're not getting to where you want to go in the amount of time you want to go, it's okay, because I can't control the outcome. I'm standing in this line.
Yes.
So how could I stand in this line in a good way? Who would Leslie like to be? Not on the outside, because nobody could tell. I'm just having this conversation with my own self on the inside. So who would Leslie like to be? Maybe I could smile at someone who's struggling with her kid in the cart. Maybe I could help somebody. Maybe I could just stand here and pray. There's things I could do that could be very productive in this moment besides being irritable. And as I switch gears from irritation, which my body is feeling, and I take my mind and I start thinking about things I'm thankful for, or ways that I can be useful, or things that I can practice I can think of compassionate thoughts toward the clerk who's talking to this customer in front of me and saying, maybe she's really ministering to this person. And maybe this person's never had a conversation all day long. There's an elderly person, maybe they live alone, and this is the first adult conversation they've had for 3 days. Who am I to judge that? This might really bless this. And I'll start thinking better thoughts than, why aren't they going faster?
Right.
And immediately I calm down. Immediately I don't feel those irritable feelings anymore. And so these are some ways to notice, even if you're not reacting, but you notice you're feeling it.
Right.
You can start talking to yourself in ways that can be constructive in the opposite way. So instead of being anxious, I can be calm, I can breathe. Instead of being irritable, hey, I can be compassionate, I can be respectful of another person's agenda. I can see the good in this, that God might be using this for someone else's good, and I'm not the most important person in the world. And so those kind of things can really help you shift from that state of anger or anxiety or impatience, whatever it might be, to something different, even if you're not expressing ugly stuff on the outside.
Right. I love your language around this. You use a kind of the phrase, change the channel, right? And that, I'm just going to change, because otherwise we're going to continue to dwell on this, this negative thought. And we're just prone to do that. And we have to willfully and purposely say, I'm going to change the channel. Right. And this is not who I want to be. Right. This step one, I want to step away from these negative feelings. I want to change the channel and be, and do and be something different than this. Right. And so, and that's really actually what Leslie's explaining, is how we change the channel. I have this one little quick story that I often tell. Is like one time I was, I had some clients out in a town close by. We had recently moved to Atlanta. I didn't have quite as many clients there as I did in my old city. So I would make a one once a week run out to Athens. And there was a Chick-fil-A on the way. And so I pull up in this Chick-fil-A. I'm a little bit late. Pull up in this Chick-fil-A. There's like 14 people in line. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be even later. So I'm all of my negative thoughts. So I decide I'm going to go inside. This is pre-COVID. I'm going to go inside. There's only one person in. I'm like, yes, I can get my Chick-fil-A really quick. And I wait in the Chick-fil-A, one person in front of me, only one person in front of me, line for so long that I actually can see in the drive-through window the person that was in front of me in the car, right? So 14 cars have gone through the Chick-fil-A line. So what am I, there's no way to kind of like, think of that at the moment, except for negative things. How could they, they're the one that say, fast food, and it's not being fast. And I'm feeling entitled, and a lot of negative thoughts. But I remember at that moment, because I was very much practicing, trying to step away with very, purposeful intent, stepping away from those negative thoughts and really saying, who do I want to be right now? And I had to change the channel in that moment. Otherwise, I could have walked out of Chick-fil-A still angry, even if I got served, and held on to all kind of narrative and negative thinking at that point. But making that decision to change a channel, I've got to do something different here.
Yeah, and it's not, and I think we have to expand this question, not who do I want to be, because we could say, hey, I handled myself in an appropriate way, but it's also, how do I want to feel? Right. So if I'm watching a movie at night,
right.
I like CSI or whatever, and I'm seeing all kinds of domestic violence and sexual abuse and stuff, and I'm feeling horrible, and I'm feeling scared, and I'm feeling anxious for the person who's going to get killed or whatever. I'm thinking, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel this way before I go to bed. Right? That's not how I want to feel. What do I need to do? I turn the TV off change the channel to something calm like HGTV. And I watch that for a while because I don't want to feel those feelings. And so understand I'm not acting anyway. I'm just sitting in the chair watching TV. But I'm feeling
Right.
stress. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling afraid. And I don't want to feel those feelings. And so I just want you to not feel like you're a victim of your feelings. Your feelings will come based on kind of what you're watching on the channel, whether it's real life or whether it's TV. And if you don't want to feel those feelings, now sometimes you do need to feel those feelings because they're telling you something, but other times they're just kind of residue. They're old familiar feelings that you felt in the past that are getting triggered again, and it's not true. I have a lot of rejection triggers because I was rejected a lot in my childhood. And so if someone treats me bad on the pickleball court, I could go into a rejection. Oh, I should go home because nobody likes me and nobody wants me at this party kind of stuff. That isn't true at all, but it's a feeling from my childhood that comes back, right? And I'm just being real with you guys. And so we have these feelings that come into our bodies and we have to notice them. And I'm like, I notice, here it comes again, this anxiety, here it comes again, this irritability, here it comes again, this rejection. And there's nothing in my real world that's causing that other than what's going on in here. And I can change that channel. And to learn how to do that is powerful, ladies, because you don't want to live the rest of your life a victim of your emotional life.
Right.
Yeah, James, I can't watch scary movies either. National Geographic.
Yeah, literally change the channel. On the
I literally changed the channel. I literally changed the channel. Even, I've been watching this Netflix series it's called Maids, about domestic violence. There's only so much I can watch, and I can only watch it earlier in the evening. Because if I watch it at night, I'm having her nightmares, and I have to guard my heart and guard my mind because I need my sleep, and I don't want to be having nightmares about someone's story that isn't even mine. And so it's really important that we take those thoughts captive, and we have to notice them. And I love that word, Elise, that if we don't notice our stinking thinking, if we don't notice our emotions and how they're there to serve us or they're there to distract us, then we can think everything, this is the victim mindset. It's all because of the traffic jam. It's all because of the airport. It's all because of my parents who didn't raise me right. It's all because, and it's not. Those things might have led up to some of that, but we have to take ownership now of where we are now. A really good illustration of this, if you're still in that victim mindset, is if your parents neglected you and you have rotten teeth and they never took you to the dentist and you're not happy with the way your teeth look right now, whose responsibility is to make that fix? It's yours. You're the one who has to go to the dentist. Nobody can do that for you. You're the one who has to sit under Novocaine and have the drills or implants or whatever else you need, caps on your teeth like I have had to do. No one can do that for you. They might even pay for it sometimes, but maybe not. And so if you want better looking teeth at this stage of your life, you've got to do it. And so that's taking ownership versus just being angry that your teeth are rotten because your parents didn't take care of you. All right. That's true. But now what are you going to do with that? Are you just going to let it wreck your life? Or are you going to take ownership of the healing that you need to take place so that you can be the woman that you want to be, whether it's with your teeth or with your heart and your mind and your body and your relationships? And so we encourage you to consider being a part of our Empower to Change group, because it's bigger than just dealing with a destructive relationship. It's much bigger than that. It's about really doing your own maturing work, your own internal growth work, especially if you didn't have a lot of instruction about how to do that as a kid. How do I identify my feelings? How do I notice my feelings? What are my feelings? I don't even know the names of them. I just call myself upset all the time. And so understanding those things and learning to manage your emotions and manage your triggers and take responsibility for the person, not only who you want to be, but how you want to feel every day.
Right.
Like, ask yourself this question: how would I like to feel today? And I always answer the question, I want to feel peace and I want to feel joy.
Right.
So when I answer that question, how do I want to feel today? What do I need to do to make that happen?
Right.
I need to go out in the sunshine. I need to take a walk. I need to slow down.
Right.
I know what I need to do to feel better. Right. And I know what happens when I don't do those things. Do you know that?
Yeah. And I think what Leslie's really kind of helping us kind of walk through is this, kind of this macro and the micro. The macro is that we actually, we have to notice and otherwise we keep, doing the same thing, blaming the same people, blaming the same, situations. But when we have that sense, that feeling of, this is not who I want to, this is, I don't like this. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I'm tired of feeling this way. And I've heard that so many times with coaching clients. I'm tired of feeling this way. And so really then taking ownership, as she was saying, and moving and saying, I actually have agency to do differently. Right. My parents might have not have done it well, but I have agency to go forward. And that's actually saying, you may have been a victim of neglect, but now I can take ownership. I can have full agency of my feelings and my emotion, my well-being, my self-care, and move forward with that. And
Yeah.
I can make that decision. Right. And so I don't have to feel these feelings any longer. Right.
And Marianne is making a really good point. She says, I'm the compassionate one, but my partner is full of anxiety that he does not control. His anxiety has caused verbal abuse that escalates. It's so hard when others around you do not change their channel. It's hard for me to get not anxious myself. And so I understand that. And so I want to validate for you that when you're around, I'll call them negative vibes, whether they're anxiety, depression, a lot of anger, other kinds of unrest emotionally, it's very tough not to have it impact you. All right. Studies show, social psychologist Daniel Goleman wrote a great book called Social Intelligence. In my book, The Emotionally Destructive Relationship, Not Marriage, I quote his book a lot about the impact of someone's negative emotions on us, because it's like COVID. It's very contagious, right? It's very contagious. And just like if you were living with someone with COVID, you'd probably mask up and you'd wear gloves and you'd make sure you got your vaccine or whatever you need to do to take care of you. This is what you need to do when you're living with someone with unregulated emotional outbursts and they are full of, blaming life for their anxiety and they refuse to take responsibility for themselves. It does make you feel those feelings. And so this is where it's really important for you to get the support, for you to have good boundaries around that, for you to exercise excellent self-care, and to know whether you're in such a toxic environment that you aren't able to stay healthy, right? And but don't feel guilty at all about you having to put some boundaries down for yourself. The same as if your husband came down with COVID, right? My son had COVID at our house, and we can be very compassionate towards, he's single, he lives alone. He needed someone to help him. He came to our house. Thankfully, we were both vaccinated, but we still had boundaries. You may not leave the bedroom. We'll put your food outside the door. We had masks and gloves, and we had boundaries. And that wasn't mean. It was saying, we don't want to get what you have, and we've got to take care of us. And so you may need to do that for yourself with a partner or a family member who's living with you. If they had a contagious disease, you would do that without a shred of guilt. But somehow emotionally, we feel like we can't have any boundaries around someone who's not regulating their emotions.
Yeah. I mean, when you were saying that, Leslie, I was thinking, it just kind of came, I love you. You're saying to your son, I love you. Yes, you can come here. I can care for you. I love you. And I love me. Right. And so many times in this, we've, been taught in the church, and it's just this complete, sacrifice of self, as though we aren't really called, even in the greatest commandment, to love ourselves as well. Right. And that was just an active, kind of, walking on, this is what it looks like in real time example of what Leslie was saying, and so let me encourage you ladies that you can be compassionate about your husband's depression, and you can set healthy boundaries around your husband's, not being able to regulate himself, because you can actually love him and love you both, right? Both can exist.
And I think this is really important for you to acknowledge what you can handle and what you can't handle. Right. And sometimes you're at a space where you're in a situation where you don't know how to handle that. You don't know how to have good boundaries. You don't know how to say it in a good way to, hey, I'm not coming into your room without a mask or gloves, or, hey, you can't come at me this way. And I won't have a conversation with you this way. And maybe I won't even live with you this way unless you're willing to get some help, depending on how unsafe it is for you financially, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And so I think that it's really important. If I were unvaccinated, maybe I wouldn't have let my son stay here. So I think those are the things that you have to kind of think through for how you're going to handle you and what amount of risk you're going to take to your mental, emotional, physical health when someone's unstable. Even if someone had a physical illness, let's say they had a brain tumor, all right? And we've talked about this before, and the brain tumor is causing them to be paranoid.
Right.
And they're running around, threatening you because they think you're spying on them for the Russians. And that's not true, but they don't know it's not true. And they're going to stab you or harm you because they're thinking crazy thoughts. It might be. You can't live there. You just can't live there, even though you have compassion for their illness.
Right.
Because it's too dangerous.
Right. Now, one of the I lost it in the feed now, but it said something about her husband's emotions and that he didn't regulate well, and that he had, basically isolated her. Right. And so, so now it sounds like she's kind of, one-on-one with that. And so this is a place really where we are calling you to take care of yourself. Right. And so that, unless you're a prisoner, that you have to take some agency over yourself and say, you know what, I understand you're uncomfortable when I leave the home, or you're uncomfortable that, I have other friends, but creating very healthy boundaries for yourself. Otherwise, you are one-on-one with this person with negative feelings. And at some point, that becomes almost impossible not to have this coming towards you at all times. And so how do you take care of yourself in that moment? How do you say no? How do you say, I love you, but I also love myself, and that's not okay for me? Right. And back to
I think that's so important, Elise, that if you're being isolated, you're agreeing with that.
Right.
So no one can isolate you unless they keep you a prisoner without your permission. Right. And so if your husband became paranoid over food and said, hey, I don't want you to eat food anymore, you would probably say, that's not going to work for me because I need food. I can't live without food. I need food. And so it's not like you have to demean them and say, if you don't want to eat food, that's your choice, but I'm eating food. Right. If you don't want to have friends, or you don't want to go to church, or you don't want to go out, or you don't want to meet our neighbors, okay, that's your choice. But I need people in my life. I need stimulation. I need to do this for me. Right. All right. And he's not allowed to say what you need to do for you. That's not his domain. Self-stewardship is your responsibility as a mature, full adult. And just because he's your husband doesn't give him the right to tell you what you need or what you don't need, what you can do and what you can't do. That's not his domain of responsibility. That's your domain of responsibility. And that's all about boundaries. Right. And so in this class, in the 6-month coaching group, you're going to learn all about those kind of things. You're going to learn about not only how to do certain things, but how to think about boundaries, how to express yourself so that you're not expressing yourself in a demeaning, degrading way to your husband and saying, well, you're so controlling and you're so mean and you're so paranoid. I can't live that way. You say, hey, I need people in my life. I need freedom. I need the ability to say no to you if we're going to have a healthy relationship. If you don't want to let me do that, then I'm going to have to, I'm not sure you would say it this way, but I got to think about my options because I'm not living like a prisoner. Right. And so I think those are the things that you can learn to do. And whether or not you're in a destructive marriage, we all need to learn. Right. Both internal skills. How do I manage my emotions? How do I catch my stinking thinking? How do I notice where I am, what I'm about, who I am, what I want, what I don't want? All those questions about self are really important. We start the course with that. Right. And then we move into how do I show up in the world? How do I have relationships? Am I too passive? Am I too aggressive? Am I demanding everyone meet my needs? When that's not possible, I'm angry at everybody because they won't do what I want when I want. Or do I just let everyone take advantage of me? Am I a people pleaser? Am I always looking for my worth and value in other people? How do I show up in relationships, both with my female friends and my male friends, family members, adult children, all those kind of things? Who am I? Is this how I want to show up? How am I feeling? Is this how I want to feel? How am I living my life? Am I living for purpose, or am I living for pleasure or approval? And pleasure and approval are ways lots of people live today. I live for the applause of people, or I live for pleasure of my senses, but I don't live for purpose. And that's an empty way of living. And so how do we learn to live for purpose and learn what our purpose is and become who God called us to be? So that's what the whole course is going to teach you about both in video lessons as well as small group coaching experiences, so that when you try certain things, like, okay, I tried to have a conversation with my mother, I had tried to have a conversation with my boss, but this is what happened. They gaslighted me and they did this, and I don't know how to come back with it. Well, you will be coached on how to hold your own in those situations, and how to stick with your boundaries, and how to reorient so that you're not stuck in a negative emotion for the next 6 months, that you're able to let it go, and you move and you learn those skills so that you can be empowered to change that dynamic inside of yourself, as well as hopefully in some of your relationships.
Right. What a good word, Leslie, reorient. Even if the topic today is kind of, of moving away from those negative emotions, it's really reorienting, our thinking and our feeling. Like, we can do that, right? And that's the beauty really of this class, is it's really incredible, as we do that, individually and collectively. And we will gain so much from the collective as well. I love doing these classes, and just the input from the other participants in the class, and how much the ladies grow from the beginning to the end. It's really a delight to watch.
It is.
And it is a reorientation, because you have come into the class really with that open heart and open mind, kind of an open hands, like, I want to do differently, and today we're really talking about, I want to feel differently. And so both are going to happen with this reorientation. Right.
So we're going to go to questions now. We've got another couple minutes to be on the Facebook Live, and I want to make sure we get to questions. So I'm going to read some of the questions. If you have other questions for us, either about the Empower to Change course that we're offering, the coaching class.
Right.
And a lot of people are giving some good recommendations on different things, books that you can read. There's tons of good information out there. Just like listening today is good information.
Yeah.
The difference that I want to challenge you with is sometimes we read something, but we still don't know how to put it into practice.
Right.
We still don't know how to get the feedback that we need. Am I putting this into practice the right way? And so what we do in Empower to Change is we give you a lot of good information about these things, just like we're doing in this Facebook Live, very structured program. But we also have these small group 90-minute coaching sessions when you're in a group of other women who are struggling with the same things, and you're practicing with one another. You're listening to your coach give you some feedback about how you could say it a little differently, or how you could think about things a little differently. Right. And those moments are not just informational, they're transformational. They will help you do that work in a much more powerful way than just reading about it. At least for me, I find that when I'm in an environment where I'm getting feedback and I'm getting help and putting the stuff into practice, I grow so much faster than if I'm just reading a book and trying to think, well, how am I going to put this into practice? Right. And who's going to tell me whether I'm doing it right? And what if I don't do it right? And then what? What do I do? And then I sort of just put the book down and keep going and do the same thing I always do, which is what we do, right?
Yeah, we're up to bat in those classes. Yeah. That's for sure.
All right, so let me give you a couple questions.
Okay.
Addison. My dog is barking. No. Are there therapies that address this to get psychological support? I think you can do one-on-one therapy if you want, which is much more about healing past wounds. But if you're learning to grow in a specific skill set and wanting to change certain things that we're talking about right now, oftentimes group coaching is actually more helpful to you, because it's something that you don't even think about as your issue when you're talking in a group of people and you see another woman working through her stuff and you're saying, I do that too. Oh, I never tried that before. I could try. And so it just gives you a lot more tools to practice with. Therapy is more about gaining insight and understanding and some healing of past trauma, maybe, or past hurts. And this is more about how do I see where I'm damaged, and I want to grow through those things and become stronger. And so the group is more oriented around that. So you can certainly contact some therapists and see if they work with, if you have been traumatized as a child, or if you've been traumatized in certain situations, you may need some specific therapy around trauma. That's not what we do in Empower to Change. We talk about triggers and we talk about trauma, but we don't do trauma therapy. That's just not what we can do in the coaching group. We're trauma-informed coaches, but we don't do trauma therapy. So if you need something more specific like EMDR or those kind of treatment modalities, then certainly call some counselors in your area, call your church and see if they have some recommendations of counselors. Okay. All right, here's another question. I'm trying to get out of a toxic environment, but I have a pretty nasty case of COVID. My husband is being so cruel and he just shouts all boundaries down. Need him to help with the kids, but he's not helping me emotionally or physically right now.
Okay.
So, any recommendations about what she can do in this moment?
Well, my first recommendation is she has to think outside the box. I mean, he's telling you no, that he's not willing to help. So now what? Right?
Right.
Is continue to use your agency and, kind of your ownership of like, I still, I want to be a good mom. So I still need to, and I'm sick. I know that I can't get up and so what do I need to do next?
Yeah.
We would
And
love to support and help, but he said no. So what
how
do
old are your children would be one thing.
we,
So
okay. Yeah,
maybe,
that's okay.
maybe they can help you more than he's
Yeah,
helping you, right?
yeah,
And second of all, if your children are young and you have COVID, then it might be, you have to think about, all right, so what would I do if I were in intensive care? What would I do if I were,
right.
completely laid flat and couldn't do something? Who would I call? What neighbor, what friend, what parent
Right.
can I call and say, I need help. My husband's not willing to help. Can you help?
Right.
So I think those are really important questions that when we keep trying to get someone to do something that they've already told you they're not going to do, it's insanity. It's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results. So this is a moment of wake up for you, because your husband promised in sickness and in health, he would be there for you, and he's not.
Right.
And he's not even there for his kids. So this is a wake-up call for you. It's a horrible wake-up call because you're sick at the same time, but it's a wake-up call for you that he doesn't care about you or your children, not because you're not worth it, but because of who he is.
Right.
And so don't waste your time trying to get him to care about you.
Right.
Go to plan B, and you have to think about what plan B is for you and for your kids. Who can I go stay with? How can I get some help for myself? How can I get help for my kids? Are my kids capable of helping me? So if they're preteens and teens, they probably can function pretty well right now, and they can bring you food and they can help you with stuff if you need that.
Right. Right. And this may be also a time, I think as mothers, sometimes we way overfunction. And it may be a good place where we can see what our children are actually capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. I have 3 granddaughters, 12, 10, and 9. And I mean, if their mom got sick, they would be there for her. They would help her. I mean, they can't, drive or anything like that, but they can function. They can get in the fridge and they can feed themselves. And it may not be the most healthy foods. They can call a neighbor or, call someone else and say, can you bring groceries for my mom and me? We're hungry, So they can do some of that stuff if they had to. And so it might be a time for your kids to really step up and take care of you and take care of themselves if dad's a total flake, and stop fueling his entitlement to rage at you. You don't need that right now. So leave him alone and just let him be if you can. And if he really gets scary, call the police. Just call 911.
Right.
All right. Can you give me some practical steps I can practice today to get a hold of my strong emotions with my husband and kids? I do good most of the time, but other times I lose my temper. I feel so ignored. So I think the first thing I would say is, how do you feel when you lose your temper so much? So obviously you don't feel good about yourself, or you wouldn't be asking this question, right? So part of not losing your temper anymore is accepting the reality that you are ignored. And I'm not saying accept it like, oh, that's fine or that's good. Right. Just like if I accepted the reality that I had breast cancer, if I felt a lump in my breast and I went to the doctor and he says, you have breast cancer, I'm not going to like it, but the only way I can take the next step is to accept it. Oh my gosh, I have breast cancer. Now what am I going to do? All right. So now if you can accept that you're ignored, now what do you do? What do you do? Because if your children are older and they're ignoring you and they're not caring for you and your husband's not caring for you, that's a wake-up call. How do I care for me? What do I need to do to build a life, to take care of my life? Mm-hmm. So I'm not demanding or expecting people who don't care for me to care for me. Mm-hmm. Now, if your children are little children and they're ignoring you and not paying attention to you, you're still a parent and you're still required to parent them. And so how do you set some consequences in place for your children instead of using your anger to control them? Right. Or get their attention? How do you use some consequences and say, hey, I'm not, so here's one thing I did. And there might be lots of different strategies, but my kids were probably 9 and 4, maybe a little older. And they would ignore me when I would tell them dinner was ready. They would ignore me other things too, until I yelled, so dinner's ready, come on, come down the table. And they'd be watching TV or something. They just completely ignore me. And like, hello, dinner's ready. Come, let's go eat. They completely ignore me. They keep doing what they're doing until I would scream at them, get to the table. Dinner's getting cold, And I'm thinking, I don't want to be like this.
Yeah.
This is no fun for anybody. Everybody comes to the table like all upset and we're all like trying to eat and we're all shaky. So I said, I'm doing this differently. Hey guys, I'm going to tell you dinner's ready one time. If you choose not to come to the table, I'm throwing your dinner in the trash. So they were old enough to get that. And 1 or 2 times of me doing that was a wake-up call for them. They better listen. When I say dinner's ready, dinner's ready. And if you don't come to the table, you don't get to eat. So instead of being angry, there's just a consequence. Mm-hmm. Dinner's here. I'm going to eat dinner now. If you don't want to eat dinner. And my husband was willing to cooperate with that. So, if your husband's going to sabotage you, that may not be a good thing. But what are they ignoring you about? And what can be the consequence? So, hey, I've asked you 1,000,000 times to put your laundry in the laundry tub. You didn't do it. I'm not doing your wash. You can do your wash, or you can wear dirty clothes. Your choice. But I'm not doing your wash if it's not in the hamper.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things, let's say in this empowered to change, is like, we're not empowering anybody else to change. We're empowering ourselves to change. Mm-hmm. And your story is a perfect example of that, of like, you actually recognize what your part of the dance was, right? Of recognizing where you were in this, this cycle of, screaming to get their attention finally, and saying, I don't want to do that. What do I need to do? Right? Instead of continuing to stay focused on the children, they need to come when I call. Well, they do. That's true. But you accepted they weren't. Right? And so like, okay, so I have the power to do something different. I have the power to do something different in me. Right? Mm-hmm. The children still may not come if I throw their food away. I don't know. But I'm willing to do something different than what I've been doing. Right. And that's really, empowered to change is really about really taking ownership of who we are and recognizing where we are in the pattern and changing not others, but ourselves.
Right. And I think part of it is we feel hurt when we're ignored, for sure. We feel angry when we're ignored or not cared about, whether it's the woman who's got COVID, and sharing, and your husband's not caring about you, or your kids not caring for you. And sometimes we have to look at how we've enabled that. Like, we have been such a giving, sacrificial person in our marriage or in our mothering that we have not taught them to care for us, that we've been the hero of their story. We've been super mom. We've put our cape on and we've been the mom. And then when we can't, it's like, get a life, mom. You're supposed to do this for me, or you're supposed to always be there for me, or what, they don't even think about you as a person who has a need, because you've been so capable and so sacrificial and so giving your whole life that they don't even think of you as a person. They just think of you as a role. You're the mom, you're the maid, you're the doer. If you can't do, well, why can't you do? And so I think this is really important as a wake-up call for you to say, wow, I've taught people not to care about me. I've enabled them not to care about me. Because if you married someone and they start not caring about you and treating you horrible right after the wedding day, you have to start saying, whoa, this isn't working for me. I thought we were a twosome. I thought we were going to care about each other. I must have misunderstood you when you said your vows. So where are we here? Mm-hmm. You never say that and never confront the elephant in the room, mm-hmm. and just let him continue to act as if you don't matter and only he matters and only his needs matter and only his feelings matter and only his goals matter. And you cooperate with that mindset. Guess what? You're fueling a monster, because it only grows.
Right.
And then after 15 or 20 years of this, you're tired of it. You're like, done. And he's like, what's wrong with you? Because you've always done it.
Right.
Right. And so this is why this class will really help you take ownership and not be the victim anymore, but say, you're right. I have always done it, and I'm not willing to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. Done. I'm done being the maid. I'm done being the object. I'm done. If you don't want to care, Addison, be quiet. Add, get in your cage. Get in your cage. Go on, get in your cage. We have delivery men coming to the door because of Christmas and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. So she's warning me.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Melissa says, I realize I've enabled my family to treat me like, my kids don't respect me. My husband doesn't care about me. He's good to the kids. But yes, I've allowed it. and now I don't know what to do, or now I don't know how to fix it, And so my hope is that, through these Facebook Lives and the encouragement we're telling you, that we'd love to be a part of at least showing you how you can fix it now. Again, you're going to have to be the one that says, yes, I'm willing to do that hard work and step into that and do that. And these are hard places, and you're going to get a lot of pushback. There's going to be a lot of people in your family. If you've been, servant to your children and to your husband, and you kind of say, hey, there's a me in this family, I think we're going to get a little bit of resistance around that. But how to do that and how to do that well is really a lot of what Empowered to Change is about.
Yeah. And we really teach you how to do that, and you practice in your small groups.
Yeah.
But I think, just a real quickie is to be able to say to your family, not you're selfish, you're bad, you've hurt me, you're abusive, you're, treating me like an object, but to say to your family, I think I've made a terrible mistake in that I have allowed myself to be devalued in this family. I've allowed myself to think that we could do relationship with me being the only giver here. And I've come to realize that I'm full of resentment, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. I don't want to feel resentment anymore. I don't want to feel angry anymore. I don't want to keep losing my temper because no one cares about me. So I'm laying it on the table. Either we have mutual and reciprocal caring relationship that goes two ways, or I accept that you don't care about me, and then I'm not able to do a relationship like I've done it before, and I'll have to regroup. And I'm not saying you would say exactly that way, but that's kind of the mindset that has to be in your mind, because you can't beg someone to love you. Even Jesus accepted, Judas doesn't want to love me. The rich young ruler doesn't want to love me, and he let them go. You can't make someone or guilt trip someone into caring about you. It doesn't give you the love that you really want if they're doing it because you're threatening them. So if they don't want to care about you, understand this. It's not a statement about you, but it is something that you have to understand and accept. If my mother doesn't want to love me, there's nothing I can do to make her love me. I can't make her be a good mom. It's out of my power. All I can do is accept this and say, okay, and move on. And that's part of what we have to do when someone doesn't want to care about us. But how is the rub? And we want to teach you, if that's your situation, how to do that with strength and dignity, and not like a wounded puppy with your tail between your legs, feeling like you can't live without this person's love or attention. Of course you can. Of course you can. You might not want to, but you can, and you need to learn how. Because otherwise someone will always have power over you.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Leslie.
All right. I think that's all the questions. So I'm going to move. We're going to close for today, but we do want to invite you to check out lesliebernick.com/change. And we have a new group that just opened up because our other groups are almost all full. And so we have a new group that opened up on Monday afternoon at noon Eastern time. So if that's a good time for you and you'd like to be a part of Empower to Change, we are having a big meeting on Friday, tomorrow, of everyone who's signed up so far. So if you are thinking about it, I would really encourage you to kind of really decide, hey, I want to be a part of this group and I need to sign up today so I can be a part of that small group meeting tomorrow with all of the other ladies that have joined Empower to Change, so that you can start getting the support in Facebook and on Zoom right away before our classes start in January. This is a hard season for many of you, and you could really benefit from that extra support. So if you'd like to be a part of Empower to Change and you've been watching all these Facebooks and you're kind of going back and forth, I would highly encourage you to make that decision by today so that you can be a part of our small group call tomorrow at 2:00 Eastern time. It'll be via Zoom. It'll be on Zoom so we can get to know you and get to meet you. All of our coaches will be there. I'll be there. Martha, my assistant, will be there so she can help you work through Zoom if you're a little bit iffy on Zoom or you don't know how to do Zoom, because all the coaching will be on Zoom. And also how to get into the membership site so you can start watching the videos ahead of time and all the things that you would need to do technically. We're going to help you do that. So please check out Empower to Change. And if you are in Conquer, in our membership group of Conquer, and you are interested in being in a Conquer only group, then go to just contact Martha at lesliebernick.com, and she will give you the options for the Conquer group. I think there's a Monday evening available with Unia that has some spots available. And you can join any group you want. So you can join this one on Monday afternoon if that suits you better. But if you really prefer to be with just your Conquer sisters and get to know that group better, then it'll be 15 Conquer sisters in that small group as well. So we are appreciative of you being here. We will probably do some Facebook Lives. I'm not sure if we'll do them the week before Christmas. I'll have to see where we're at, but we will continue to do some of these because I think they're so helpful. And I really want to equip women to be women of strength and dignity who can smile at the future unafraid. I don't want you to continue to stay in victim mindset and feel helpless and powerless. That's not who God made you to be. And that is not your mature self. That's not your best self. And just like a caterpillar isn't their best self until they transform into the butterfly, or a seed isn't their best self until they transform into the oak tree or transform into the sunflower, the rose bush, or whatever you're apple tree, whatever you're supposed to be. You don't want to stay in this immature position. You don't want to stay there. And especially when you're a grown-up, you don't want to stay there. And there's a lot of grown-ups that are still immature. They still haven't developed into their full adult self, their full personhood that God made them to be. And learning how to manage your emotions, learning how to manage your thought life, learning how to speak up for yourself, learning how to navigate relationships in a healthy way, learning how to take care of yourself and not be a needy, dependent person like a child is important if you want to have mature, healthy relationships. And we want to help you do that. So Empower to Change will be a huge boost in that. I can't think of anybody who's had a negative thing to say about Empower to Change. We've been doing it for 9 years now. And each year the groups grow because we only do it once a year. And people want to be a part of it. We only have 15 people in a group because we want to keep it small and personal. And the group can stay together. The material is available for you a lifetime. It doesn't end at the end of the group. You can always go back and rewatch the videos. And the Facebook group stays for a lifetime. So even the people in the very first Empower to Change 9 years ago are still in their same Facebook group and they still support one another. So you build lifelong relationships. And I hope that if that's something that you need, and this is really appealing to you, that you check us out at leslieburnick.com/change.
Let me ask you real quick, Leslie, will tomorrow be recorded?
Tomorrow will be recorded for those who have missed we couldn't be there live.
Right.
Or those, if we still have some openings, we will probably send out a couple emails afterwards. So people who sign up later for some of the groups, if we have some spots left, they may sign up after Christmas or whatever. We'll give them the recording as well.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody said something in the feed and I just wanted to check and make sure. So wonderful. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah. Oh, so let me just, my mother is dying, Deborah. I'm so sorry. My mother died in August. And I know that's such a hard thing, especially this time of year. Have signed up for small group. What happens if I can't participate tomorrow? Okay, so yeah, it'll be recorded for you. And we hope that you can, but totally understand if you can't. All right. All right. So ladies, thank you so much for being here and appreciate your participation. Practice today, letting go of a negative thought and just a negative feeling, and just practice by one thing. Notice it. Why are you here? Do you have a purpose to serve? Are you telling me something? And maybe not, maybe it's just an old residue of stuff that you always feel. All right, let's practice changing the channel. Let's practice acting out a different virtue and see what happens. Practice gratitude or practice thankfulness or practice compassion and kindness when you're feeling all cranky and irritable, and see how that helps you to let go of the feeling that you don't want to have, even though you're functioning just fine. It may not be that you're reacting in all those ways. Some of you are, but others aren't. They're just feeling those yucky feelings all the time. You can change the channel, and that can make a huge difference in how your day goes. All right. Take care. God bless. Thanks, Elise. Appreciate you.
Always.
All right. Bye-bye.